a little bit. Does everyone have an agenda? We're actually going to start with roll call of our officers here. So let's start down on this end with Betsy. Betsy, can you introduce yourself and say what your office is, and we'll just work our way around this. We usually don't do this, but...
Okay, Betsy McDaniel, I'm the recording secretary.
Austin Pearl, I'm the recording secretary.
Karen Howard, treasurer. Diane Wallace, membership.
Terry Jean Quinn, and I'm the president. So now that we have that out of the way, you guys know who we are going to go ahead and hear from Chauncey Lundy with the updates on the DEOA project. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Chauncey Lundy, and this is Al Strange, the project engineer. We are representing VDOT's Surface Water Management Project, and many of you know about the project because just to give you some updates, I think we passed out a flyer already. We just provided short-term mitigating solutions to some of the overland flooding that was occurring in Bloomingdale and Resort Park. One was an 18-inch storm sewer that was installed right at 2nd Road Island, and then you saw the heavy construction a couple months ago in the 100 block of Rhode Island. We put in a 60-inch storm sewer. And two other things that we have left to do is we're installing a rain garden right here at the Triangle Garden at T Street in Rhode Island. And in the planting season, so we've had concerns about when will this garden be planted. The planting season for DDOT is in October, so landscaping will occur in the median, and we'll be planting the rain garden at that time. In terms of construction, the only construction that we have left on this project is the permeable alley on First Street right behind Mount Bethel Baptist Church, and that is slated to begin on next week. We will be coordinating with the church to see if they use the alley for the access point, as well as the people who live right around the alley on First Street. In addition to that, we'll be coordinating with the trash pickup so that we can make sure that people still get their services, and that construction can last anywhere up to a month. So we have, and after that, this project will be completed in the Bloomingdale. Are there any questions? Yes.
Is there any chance in the original plan, you're going to make that cut out at Thomas Street, the little, and you know that you come out of there, when they finish, when DC1 finishes the work there, is there that needs to go back in? That was like a little rain garden area.
Yeah, that was a rain garden area. That we did take that out of the project. Right now it's not slated to go back in. That's something I can go back in and we can go back and talk about, but it may or may not go back in. They just took that out of the project, but you did get the 18-inch storm sewer, which wasn't originally in the project. So. All right, any more questions? All right, thank you. Yes.
The alleyway on First Street, is that, what's the length of the project? Is it for the unit block?
No, it's just right in that alley behind Mount Bethel Baptist Church.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. We are very quickly going to hear from Howard University about their upcoming homecoming event.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alonzo Joy. I'm a Deputy Chief of Howard University Department of Public Safety, and thank you for the opportunity to come before you. This year, our homecoming is Saturday, October the 26th. Prayerfully, everybody will come out and enjoy themselves. The parade starts at 10 o'clock. The football game, where Howard expects to win against Morgan State, is at 1 o'clock. We can't do that unless y'all come out and cheer us on, okay? Just want to take a minute of your time, please. The parade route is slightly changed, and I'll explain to you, first of all, the route, and then a slight change for the reason for the change. On 6th Street, the administration building, the main building on the campus, we still stage there like we do all the time. Then we make a left on Fairmont, left on Georgia Avenue, go down past the hospital, make a left on Florida Avenue. Then we make a left on 5th, a right on T Street, and a left on 4th. Then we head up to the campus to the lower yard, which is in the area of College and 4th Street, where the awards and trophies and all those types of good things are given to the bands and those types of floats and all those things. Like last year and the year before, we have an emergency route on the east side of Georgia Avenue, who was mandated by the Mayor's Special Events Task Force, so that emergency vehicles, police, fire, and ambulance can get up and down that road, especially to the hospital, but any emergency that they have to use that to traverse there. We use barricades, if you will, bike racks, going down the east side of the road. This year we're going to have CSC special event folks. They're the ones you watch in the football games and special events and wear the yellow jackets, say CSC staff on it. They're going to augment that process. Because what we found out is we got a lot of little ones involved in the parade, and parents, friends, relatives. Barricades don't seem to hold them back all the time when they want to try to get a picture of the little ones. Well, because of safety measures, we're mandated to keep that area open. So we use special events folks to try to hold back. Like last year, we have a lot of helium balloons, big balloons type of thing, structures. And they make hard to turn in the different communities in the streets. So we have to have a more seamless approach to our parade, more direct approach. The little ones get so exhausted, they kind of fall out a little bit. We want them to enjoy it and be able to make the whole parade route. So those and some other logistical reasons was best for us to try this route here, evaluate this route, assess it, make some judgments to future years, if this is the route we should use, or should we look at something else. Metropolitan Police Department augments our department, as they always do. They take care of the parade route, traffic control, pedestrian control, that sorts of things. What we did before in many years, and we'll continue doing this year, we contract with the city so that we can clean the area before and after, because Sunday morning you would like to come out, and although you enjoy the parade, saw the parade or something, you just don't want to see the debris all over the streets, and none of us want that. So we clean the streets that way. It's going to be a good time. I pray that some of y'all can come out and enjoy yourselves. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns that maybe I can discuss regarding homecoming? Again, it's Saturday, October the 26th. The parade starts at 10 o'clock. The football game starts at 1 o'clock.
I have a question. You said you were going to go to 4th Street this year. Last year you went down T Street and you went up around the 3rd Street circle and went up front of Soho. So that's, you're not going to do 3rd
No, ma'am, we're going to do 4th Street that year for the reason I just spoke about. We need to have a more seamless route for the balloons that you see in the air. I call them helium balloons because they're made like helium. We have young folks in the parade. We want to make sure that they can be able to make the parade. And then logistically, it just makes simple that we go those routes there. So we're going to try that route out this year.
Oh, okay. So 3rd Street circle was difficult to maneuver?
Each year I think we're up to 200 pieces this year. This year we recognize we got to have a cap on it because as things go, the parade can be still going on and the game gets ready to kick off. And we got to transition some of our resources because we have resources at both locations. But as the game begins, we need the resources from the parade to augment with, the football game. So we don't want to rush it from one place to another. So we'll give this a shot and see how this looks.
That was going to be great.
Oh, thank you.
Back to take back, Bryan Street is also closed.
So you think it does?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
If you come up 2nd Street and make that left on Bryan, that will be one of the end points. But Bryan Street is closed. And construction is also on 2nd Street.
Any other comments or anything?
Do you have a map?
Please.
Do you have a map you can share with us?
Yes, Pastor. If you can pass the map back so everybody can see it, I appreciate it. Well, thank you for your time, guys. I hope you come out and enjoy yourselves.
Is there someone here from Red Hen? Okay, I'm sorry. Red Hen said that they wanted to be first on the agenda a week ago, and I was looking for Sebastian, so I didn't see you guys back there. So if you want to go ahead and. Sure.
Mike, this is Leonard. He's in the red hat. Leonard is here from U Street Parking. We're just here for our valet permit. We support the community. So we do it on weekends, Friday, Saturday, just to keep cars off the streets, parking spots open.
So what, I mean, is there a request to, is this request to continue to do valet parking?
We're only on a temporary permit right now.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
So this is just for the full permitting through the city.
Okay, question?
What do y'all gonna do about valet parking in the neighborhood? Is it still going?
I'll look into that. They shouldn't be. We've contracted with the local church. That contract has been finalized. So I'll be out there managing my staff better to make sure that they don't.
Okay, what are you gonna do to stop them? You gonna be out there when they park every car?
Not every car, but if I do see them park on the streets, they won't be with us anymore. We'll take care and make sure that it's happening.
So when I see them parking the street, I'll just come and tell you, right?
Absolutely. I'll give you myself whenever you call.
You can call the restaurant anytime. I'm there every day. And my name is Mike. Please, if you see people doing that, I live in the neighborhood. Sebastian lives in the neighborhood. We don't want people parking, on the streets either.
So which church parking lot are you using?
The one at 75 Rhode Island Avenue, directly at the street.
And so what's gonna happen when, DC Water comes here?
When they shut down their lot.
Yeah.
So it's per city codes, you can't have valet without walk.
Right.
So at that point, it's on Leonard to use street parking to source another lot. Absolutely. But you can't legally, valet cannot park cars in the street legally.
And so you're doing valet parking Thursday through Saturday, is that right?
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday. About how many cars are parked at night?
Maybe 3 to 7, not that many at all.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion? Or is there any more discussion? Yes.
Don't take my comments forward against what you're proposing. I just prefer as a matter of course and a matter of record that a business or entity comes in before us and makes a request, that it be in writing, so that we know exactly what it is they're requesting. And I think it is helpful to know exactly what it is they're requesting, how it works, what are the parameters, what are they going to do? Because one question already that you mentioned about the lot may not be available at a certain time in the future, then what is in writing their option as a substitute to simply say it's illegal to do it on the street is not an option to me. It's illegal now. So if it's temporary now, it's essentially it's still going to be temporary.
That's the clarification. It's a temporary permit until the NNC approves it. It's not a temporary situation.
Well, that's what I said. It's a temporary permit, but they're asking us to approve it on a permanent basis. For a permanent basis, that's going to be temporary, and having to find something later. Would this mean they have to come back? Do they have to come back? Yes or no? I don't know. If the lot is not available after a certain date, just say October 1st, and they'll have a permit, they have to get a permit for another lot, will they have to come back to it? Or are they going to take the fact that they may have voted as an agreement to support their doing it somewhere else? That's why it's helpful to me to have these things in writing, so that we know what it is that we're voting on specifically.
I have a copy of the permit that we submitted.
When does the permit expire?
The permit expired here.
When does it approve? When does the temporary status
I
expire?
believe May 21st of next year. I think it's expired May 21st of this year for the initial temporary.
Right, but at the time of the permit issue, it would be a year from now.
Right. So what is the urgency to make a permit right now? Or is there not?
In terms of urgency, not necessarily. We can operate under the temporary permit. For the parking company, there's about, he listed them all off to me before we got here. There's maybe 8 or 9 different permitting processes and organizations they have to reach out to actually get the final full permit pushed through. So we're just here to garner support from obviously the BCA and then the ANC tomorrow to move forward, with the full permitting.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
I make a motion that they table it so they put it in writing. Because there's no urgency against us voting on it today, am I right?
It's overseen to be
What is
covered,
the-
covered by insurance.
But what?
You're working on the temporary
Hang
permit
on,
now.
Sharon, I couldn't hear an answer.
The temporary permit is only supposed to last 30 to 60 days until it's approved by the groups. This has been pushed back because of changes at the DOT as far as their website and the way things have been submitted. So it is of urgency for us to get the permit, just because then we are operating fully functional.
So what was that where it didn't expire for a year? Is that an act?
That would be from the day it was filed, but the temporary permit only lasts from 30 to 60 days. I have to keep renewing my temporary permit.
Okay, now I understand. Okay, I follow. So what I would suggest, if there's a motion on the floor, or what I would suggest is that maybe what we could do as a compromise today is if we could get a very clear and concise motion and make sure that our recording secretary has it down and reads it back to us and we are all on the same page as to what is on our written record here, that we could proceed today with that, and then going forward, I suppose after we close this matter, we could take a vote as a body as to whether we want to implement the proposed rule that going forward from this meeting, anyone who comes before us would have a written motion, proposed motion, and we can go that way. So it's kind of up to the body as to what we want to do. That's my suggestion. Yes?
They're not obligated to offer ballot parking. I feel like they're doing that as an courtesy.
I can tell you right now that both I am losing money and they are losing money on our valet parking right now. Because they don't park enough cars a month to cover the fee that they pay to Mount Bethel for their residents. And it's just purely an expense to me. We want to do it because we want to be good neighbors. We want to do it for the neighborhood. We know everybody that lives, on the adjacent blocks to us to keep, those blocks clear and the parking spots open. And, so, I mean, that's why we're doing it. That's why we're here now.
And any situation can be temporary,
Right, I don't think that's a problem issue. I think the question is whether we know exactly what we're agreeing to. So I'm suggesting that if someone can make a clear and concise motion today, and you can take it down and read it back to us, and we agree that that's what we're voting on, then we will have a solid record as to what we voted on. And then going forward in the future, we can make a determination as to whether we want to implement that rule for everyone who comes in after this point, that you would need to come in with a written motion. So that's all I'm suggesting. It's not a question of validity of your request. So, yes.
And even he said you have information currently right there. You can give us a copy of that too.
That doesn't go to what he's asking.
What if let us know what he's trying to do?
It doesn't address what he's asking, and as a matter of parliamentary, there was a motion on the floor of the table which is not debatable.
So is there a second to the motion?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I see hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 in favor of tabling. I see a hand back there. I got it. I think I have a total of 5 hands. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
only members can vote.
7. Yeah. Are these 2 members right here?
No.
Are you gentlemen members?
I'd like to pay today. I just paid today.
Okay, great. You're good. Can I see the papers, the opposition pin? 1, 2, opposition. Opposed. Yes, the what is on the table right now is whether we are going to table this issue. So I just took the yeas, and now we're going.
Is everyone who voted yes as a member?
The ones I counted, I need to be members.
Now we're voting against it, right?
Against table.
No.
Against table.
Against table.
Against table.
That's what, okay.
Yeah. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So the motion to table fails. Is there a clear and concise motion otherwise?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to motion to support their getting a permit contingent upon that, and our support is contingent with them getting an alternative lot once the other lot they're currently using becomes unavailable.
Second.
Can we, yeah, we have to make sure she has it.
Speaking on the motion, again, my concern is that that motion is not concise enough. It's not clear enough. It's not clear enough. I mean,
They can't have valet parking if they don't have a lot, so if they don't have a lot.
Let's read it, let's read it back and we'll.
And then we take a friendly amendment.
Yeah, and we'll kind of, finesse it for.
This whole issue
That's
right
what-
here
However, that support is.
is a good reason to have.
what it is, they're willing to do rather than us trying to do it.
It doesn't look like you're going back to redhead tonight.
Not to know,
So-
well, somebody, I mean, we're happy to appease the board however you guys see. fit.
Sure,
If you would
so-
like
so-
a written motion.
Actually, why don't, if you don't mind taking a seat for a few minutes, let's let her work out the wording,
Sure.
we'll come back to this.
Motion on the floor.
And do we know that you will lose
Call the
all
question.
your parking spots at the church?
We're waiting, Q,
And
we're
we're
waiting
fine.
so that she can write out the motion so that we can repeat it and make sure we understand what it says.
So could you?
I mean, you can go in and talk to her what it is you want. I mean, she put it in the motion.
Well, I'm saying, there's no guarantee they're going to lose all their parking places.
That's irrelevant to the motion. That's irrelevant to the motion. His motion, he just want to get it on the floor so we know exactly what it is that they want. And what his motion is, because the motion was to make it clear.
Yeah,
And I'm
no,
suggesting that we're going to come back and give you time to write. They can just tell you, and you can work with the motion, make the motion, and get it done.
Madam Chair, call the question.
We already have a motion on the floor, so we're just letting her get the motion
Yeah.
together.
All right, Austin made a motion to support Red Hen getting a valet parking permit, a permanent. Can I add permanent, is that friendly? A permanent valet parking permit, and the BCA support is contingent upon Red Hen getting another parking lot to replace the current parking lot. And may I add, if it comes up unavailable?
Okay. I support that friendly motion, but it's not my motion.
Okay.
It's okay with
That-
her, it's okay with
Is that okay with you?
Okay, so that's the motion.
Okay. All in favor? What's that? 11. All opposed? Okay. The motion passes. Almost painless.
So can I just ask one thing? Do you want us to then begin the process of sourcing an alternative lot and bring that back?
That's
or
not our issue.
present it at that point?
That's not our issue.
If you're asking me, yes.
Oh, we welcome.
Yes.
We're happy to.
Great, thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on to hear from, DC Water.
Hi, I'm Carlton Ray. I'm the Director of Clean Rivers Advisory for DC Water. Appreciate you coming out tonight. It's been a tough day here in the district, and I just want to acknowledge the folks who lost their lives today. DC were really went out to folks that are victims and their families. So tonight I'd like to talk a little bit about the Northeast Boundary Protection Project status overview. If you slide to the next slide, we'd just like to give a brief update on the Northeast Boundary Tunnel, the First Street Tunnel Design and Incremental Storage Tank project. The Northeast Boundary Tunnel, it's over $600 million. We've accelerated that project. Originally, it was supposed to be completed in 2025. Working quite well with lots of different folks, and right now we're on target completion to get that completed in 2022. The First Street Tunnel, the project, we've had 3 design build teams that we've been working with for the last 6 months. We've had proposals submitted, both technical and cost proposals, and we're looking forward to awarding that in the very near future. The estimated cost for that project is somewhere between $150 and $160 million. We're going to come back in about 3 weeks, a month or so, with the design build team and talk about their outreach efforts. That's what we talked about back when we had the neighborhood block meetings. So once we get the design build team on board, the contractor on board, we would bring them back out and just make sure that we're all on the same wavelength of how the project's going to unfold. Again, construction on that project we're shooting for January 2014. And then the McMillan storage tank, we have Kevin Williams, who's the project manager on that project, as well as Ed Shea. We've had a little bit of tweaking to that project, and we're going to talk about that, and some other work that we're doing also in conjunction with that. So with that, I will turn over Manuel Briggs, who's our outreach coordinator and does all our outreach to the neighborhood. He's here, and along with this great support, including other folks. So before I'd like to turn it over to Kevin to talk to you a little bit about the McMillan Storage Project.
Thanks, Carl. And thank you all for being here tonight. And next slide. I am Kevin Williams. I'm the project manager for the stormwater storage project that Carlton mentioned. And I just want to give you a brief update on where we are with the construction of that, because if you've taken any travels up North Capitol Street, you've seen some of the disruptions that we're causing while we're doing some of that construction. So just give you a brief update on where we are. You can see some of the photos. The top one's on the right. Like I said, if you've been up North Capitol, you've seen it firsthand. We are doing all our work at night to try to minimize some of the issues with the traffic. You can see the bottom 2 slides on the left, or bottom 2 photos on the left, show you the structure that's being built in North Capitol Street. So it's a shaft about 25 feet across in diameter, about 28 feet deep. We have placed concrete in the bottom. We're putting in the reinforcing steel, and we should start coming up with the walls of that structure here within the next week or so. Ultimately, what you will see is this is the storm sewer that runs down North Capitol Street, and we'll put a gate in there, which will then, when we get a storm event, it'll force some of the water over into the filter cell over on the sand filtration site, and it'll hold about 3 million gallons worth of storm water, and then delay that release downstream in the sewer. Next slide. As I mentioned, we started in the street about the first part of June, and we hope to have that. We scheduled to have that completed by the end of November. In coordination with DDOT in the permitting process, we've developed work hours. Mainly at night, we're able to close the street or get into the street about 7:30 evening, and we have to be out by 4:30 in the morning. Sometimes during the day, between the rush hours, we do some work inside the filter cell because it's out of the traffic way. So you may have seen some trucks going into the courtyard where we're working on the inside of the filter. We were very pleasantly surprised when we got inside the filter and got all the sand removed. It was in excellent condition. There was some thought that we might have to do some significant repairs to the inside to allow it to hold the water, but when we got in and did an inspection of it, it's in really good shape, so we're real happy with that. So we really didn't have to do much to the inside of the cell at all. As Carlton mentioned, there have been some changes to the overall program with the stormwater storage. And I think Ed will bring us all up to speed on those latest developments.
Good evening. My name is Ed Shea with the DC Clean Rivers Project. Emmanuel and I met with you last January when we were introducing the Northeast Boundary Neighborhood Protection Project, and we knew you'd be interested in some of the changes that we've made to the program since setting out. If you recall, we talked about having 2 storage tanks at McMillan, one on First Street and one on North Capitol. The reason being that we had 2 major trunk lines, one running up First Street and another on North Capitol, we were going to divert flow from into the tanks with just stormwater only stored in these tanks. So as we were performing the investigations needed to design these projects, we went upstream into the area of the hospitals, immediately north of Michigan Avenue, as well as the Soldiers' Home. We discovered we had numerous combined sewers that were contributing flow to the First Street, what we thought was a stormwater trunk line. For various reasons, we did not really want to divert combined sewage into these tanks. Additionally, we found that some of the basements in the structures at the hospital center were much lower than we previously anticipated. We had a great deal of mapping to work with when we set out with the design, but ultimately these are on private campuses. So we gathered even more maps, did a lot of surveying, and confirmed that conditions were not favorable to separate these sewers. Even though we really wanted to do that, we wanted to keep the storage project in McMillan on First Street, but it just didn't make sense after seeing the extent of work that would be required in the hospital center itself to make that happen. So one of the modifications, in addition to some modifications to the sewer facilities to make up for not having the First Street storage tank in service, one of the more visible changes that you're going to see is on Irving Street. We're going to introduce green infrastructure to provide some additional stormwater storage on the surface to detain that stormwater runoff. And we've set some locations between North Capitol Street and Michigan Avenue there in the green triangles along Irving Street in the public right-of-way. We're going to construct primarily bioretention, which you might also know as rain gardens, very similar to what you see in the photo there. So these will be constructed in the traffic medians. As you drive down Irving Street, there's some pretty wide medians as well as some areas off the side of the sidewalk and the side of the road where we'll install these rain gardens. And construction is going to start in November on that part of the project. So the summary of the revised plan, we still have a diversion on the First Street trunk line because we're still trying to utilize the storage capacity in that pipe underground. We're just not going to take it all the way up through the hospitals like we initially planned, and we're not going to store it in the tank at McMillan, but we still are going to build a diversion structure that ultimately will be connected to the First Street tunnel instead. So the tank, once again, the First Street tank cannot be used. The North Capitol Street side that Kevin just spoke about is obviously under construction. It's still going to be utilized. And then the rain gardens on Irving Street. The benefits of this revised plan is we keep the combined sewage in the sewer as opposed to storing it. We're going to direct stormwater bioretention on the surface to essentially treat it and detain it before it even gets in the sewers. And it allows the hospitals, the Soldiers' Home, the disruption that would have been caused there by trying to make these modifications just wasn't practical. And ultimately, this fits into DC Water's longer-term plans for green infrastructure in the district. So it's a great opportunity for us to begin green infrastructure right now in Bloomingdale. Emmanuel?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I want to make sure I'm keeping up. So the First Street tank and infrastructure on page 5 will not exist?
The tank will not exist. The connection to that tank is what's going away. The diversion structure itself is going to move south to Channing Street. So that's what we're showing here is a photo of the proposed location looking up First Street, looking north there. And that work would start in December.
So the two tanks that were going to be on First Street and North Capitol, the one on First Street is going to be here. You're going to divert water from the North Capitol Street tank to First Street.
The North Capitol part of the project will stay as it was originally designed. The First Street trunk line, the stormwater trunk line, is going to be directed to the First Street tunnel instead of the tank.
Instead of the tank, so that means there's going to be more water in the tunnel.
That's right.
And the solution to that is to have these little lake things in the median. Tell me more about that, because I have, in all the cities I live in, I haven't seen the little rivers in the middle of the.
Okay, sure.
How deep are they? How long will they run? Because if they're replacing a tank, then I would think it would be significant.
Sure. So some of the underground modifications are going to help replace the need for the tank. This is just one piece of the changes, and the more visible piece that everybody's going to see above ground. You mentioned the lakes and the medians, and we really don't want to think of them as lakes, but you do see some ponding in the middle of that garden area, which is what you're going to see out there in the middle of a rainstorm. Usually it's about 6 inches, could be up to 12 inches of ponding as the water comes into the facility. We'd be cutting curb cuts on the side of the road to let the runoff from the street. Usually that's the fastest part of the runoff to get into the sewers when we have a flooding event. So that's going to have a chance to settle in that ponding area and then infiltrate down through the soil.
One other question, still pondering that, but for the First Street Tunnel, since you're going to be redirecting more water to the First Street Tunnel, is this the First Street Tunnel as it is, or the proposed larger First Street Tunnel?
The same, the First Street Tunnel that's going to be under construction later this year.
But we basically oversized that as well. So initially we were planning to have 6 million gallons. Initially we were planning to have 6 million gallons of storage in the First Street Tunnel. We've oversized the shafts, made the shafts larger, so we can capture about 8 million gallons of storage in there. So we can actually capture more flow. Now eventually, once the big tunnel comes through on Rhode Island, we're going to we will connect that the First Street Tunnel with the larger tunnel, and then that flow will convey all the way down to Blue Plains.
Right, I understand that part. What I'm asking, Carlton, is for the redirect, since we're not having that First Street Tunnel intention, we're going to redirect more down First Street. Is it the existing First Street Tunnel or the one that's going in January that we're going to redirect this down?
I'm sorry. The new tunnel, now I understand. You're referring to the existing storm trunk line, which is probably 6 feet in diameter.
Which is already insufficient. Right?
Correct. Yeah, it'll be directed to the new tunnel with larger capacity.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this green infrastructure component will be under construction in the fall, and then also this First Street diversion beginning in December. And we'll continue to update you all on progress as we go. I'm going to hand it over now to Tom Lindberg, who's going to talk about some of the First Street tunnel updates.
A couple questions on this. So if you reduce the performance of the stormwater storage tank in Miller Park by 50%, that they're talking about. How many more BCs should we expect in our basements?
No, that's not correct. So basically, if you listen. So basically, we're going to take the diversion structure, instead of having it divert the flow and divert it into that cell 15, we're going to move it down to Channing Street. And so basically, we'll now use that pipe for a storage vessel all the way above it. So we get about 1 million gallons of storage for a pipe from above the diversion structure with the existing sewer. This additional bioretention, we get additional. What's it now?
$2 million.
No, we don't get it. We don't get it. Ultimately, in 2016, we'll have about the same volume as what we're proposing with the 2 cells. And
so how many years are we at risk? What's the schedule going to?
So again, we're basically mitigating the effect the stormwater problem is on the neighborhood. So again, our commitment here was we didn't want to put combined sewage into the storm cells, into the sand filters. And so basically we did our due diligence looking at the work above this area on private campuses and found out that there were basically combined sewers. To mitigate that, come up with an approach that still reaches our goal of about 12 million gallons in 2016, we came up with moving the diversion structure down to Channing Street, and then also doing the bioretention and oversizing oversights in the First Street tunnel.
So the difference schedule with the First Street tunnel and the original schedule with the original plan here is how many years?
Okay, so basically, yeah, our goal was to have spring 2016 have the first work done, March 2014, excuse me, March 2014, and then March 2016 have the tunnel completed, $150–60 million tunnel, and then 2022 have the large tunnel completed too.
How is DC Water addressing gas lines while construction of the First Street tunnel?
That's excellent. We work closely with all utilities, Washington Gas. We work closely with them on any type of work that we're going to be working around. We're going to be moving their infrastructure or vice versa. Our infrastructure, work closely with them, as well as Pepco and other utilities that like Verizon and those folks as well. So. And we've got Representative Washington Gas here. If I might, Mr. President. Yes. This is Steve Price.
I see you, Mr. Farrell. Yes. One of your residents, I think it was you, reached out to us, and with that question in particular, expressed that the community was at least interested in knowing that we were aware of this project and how we interact with DC Water to make sure that our facilities are maintained safely and reliably through any major construction like this is going to be. So we have a group of people here. I just asked them to come down if there were any specific questions, but I wanted to also introduce them to you because whenever we get involved in a big project like this, we also get very involved with the neighborhood, particularly as our construction piece, if there is going to be any work done on our facilities by us, we want to make sure that we're as connected to the neighborhood as we can be, and we work with our folks from our public affairs office. And Stephen and Dominique, if you would just stand up real quick, because it might not be the last time you guys see them, given the magnitude of this project. I also asked Alan Melisa to come down. He's our manager of system replacement. So this is a project that will involve some replacement of our gas main down First Street, and a little bit off to the sides for relocation efforts because of the various staging areas that your drilling operation is likely to take up. We'll have to move some of our mains in order to accommodate that. And then Frank Frost, if you wouldn't mind standing. Frank is my manager of construction in the District of Columbia. You'll probably see Frank the most because once the work starts, he'll be down here with the crews and with our supervisors. We'll work with your neighborhood representatives to make sure we get proper notice out to you if there's going to be any kind of disruption of service or if there's going to be an expectation of it tearing up the streets in any way. So you'll have those expectations. And of course, we do everything in compliance with the DC permitting system, VDOT. So we're held to pretty strict standards by them. But in short, what the coordination that's gone on with DC Water since early in the year, 2013, has resulted in our designing, and I think we're about ready to permit replacement of our gas main coming down First Street. I don't have a map with me, but if you could go to your slide 5, I think I could. So, yeah, I think it's, would this be right, Alan? Yeah. So about here and then down to Rhode Island Avenue. We'll end up replacing that gas main down First Street and again a little bit on one of the side streets, but it won't be all of the side streets. I think it will affect about 175 services, mostly down First Street. There will be some interruption of gas service when that comes about, but it'll only be during the daytime. It's whenever we have to interrupt gas service to install a new service to your home. We do that in the course of a single day, so that you're not left overnight without gas, without the ability to cook. You'll know when that's coming. You'll know when that's going to happen. We hope to minimize the surprise. If there are any real radical changes to that, we'll communicate it to you. If you have any questions or concerns during that kind of construction phase, will be present, and you can raise those issues to us. So with that, I just wanted to assure everybody we're fully responsible for making sure your gas service is safe and is reliable, and to the extent it is cut off, it's cut off for a very specific purpose of installing new facilities, and it's relit and reinstalled in the same day. Any questions for me or for my team?
I have a question on the transfer for the water and gas company. This is more of a hypothetical. The last couple of years we have not had any severe winter weather, and it is predicted that we should have a major storm this year. So I'm just wondering about your contingency plans for 2014 in case that happens.
Yeah, so basically, this is very important for us to make sure that we have access, folks have access to the facilities, both fire EMS as well as yourselves. And so the contractor is responsible for pushing snow in the construction site areas, any kind of construction station areas. The contractor is responsible for pushing snow to ensure that there's access for you as well as your fire EMS.
Question.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, and I appreciate my neighbor's questions on clarity, being informed, and it gives me comfort to know that my quest for clarity and information during the very presentation is understood in this house. When you do your ancillary joint operations with DC Water, will it require more than a day of service disruption, and is that service disruption going to be on a limited time daily, or is it going to be a disruption for a long period of time and ancillary to what the other construction is going to be?
Right. The disruption I was referring to was literally the disruption of your gas service. I didn't mean to imply there wouldn't be some other degrees of disruption to your lives, as we're constructing things up and down First Avenue. You'll feel it if you're traveling up and down. We'll have certain staging areas that will be there for every day for quite a bit of time, but just for small pieces of First Avenue as we move up. But the disruption of your gas service itself will be a single day event, a matter of hours in most cases, and would not be one unless there was something unusual that occurred that caused a complication. Would not be one that would be an overnight thing. Typically, we would simply work late if we pushed it midnight. If we had to push it beyond what we normally would like, which is usually the evening hours when residents come home, because they do need to be home so we can safely relight their appliances. If we have to push it any later, we'll stay until we get your gas service back.
So the requirement for your having a staging area implies that there'll be a period of time for you to do what you're going to do. In that interim, within that block of time, the only gas service disruption to the residents will be for several hours of one day, even though you may have to have a staging area of several weeks or months.
That's correct.
Okay.
What months do you anticipate these outages might occur?
Right now, our construction will be in conjunction with DC Water's plan, so they're really just reaching out. I know they've projected January 14 commencing construction, and I'm not sure that we have detailed beyond that as to exactly when we would do our work. It'll depend on what needs to be done, but Alan, if you can
So there are portions of the work in, let's say, Flagler Street, Flagler Place, and Adams Street where DC Water has to do some underground excavation. So we will be doing our relocation work there ahead of DC Water work. I think there are 3 work areas that we will be working in thorough basin with DC Water, and all those work has been fully designed and applied for permit. So we are trying to coordinate it with DC Water, so hopefully we'll be able to mobilize around October this year and be able to clear the areas of their excavation ahead of their work in July 2014. So that's our plan.
So if we're working during the coldest part of the year, might there be a need to have some kind of heating facility or a place for seniors? Or, I mean, would it get that cold in your house within a matter of hours?
It should not result in that kind of dramatic change at all. That's actually the whole purpose behind not terminating the gas service, for instance, 9 o'clock at night and say we'll be back in the morning. We won't do that.
Come with a contingency, following my president's comment, contingency with each senior in the event that there is a need to do what she is suggesting, that there is an identified spot working with our commissioners that can be, and our council member, that can be previously identified as a place that everybody knows if this happens, this is what we envision, or what you may envision.
Yes, I guess that's certainly something that our work with your neighborhood could talk about. I think it's probably a little bit premature only because you're really just reaching out to your contractors at this point. I mean, let's see where the schedules end up actually putting us, especially in terms of any termination of gas service. That's typically going to be with the replacement of the main down First Street, which is not exactly the work that Alan was referring to as happening a little bit earlier in the stage, which is just sort of small, finite relocations of pipes so that they could set up their staging areas. So I think that the service replacements are likely to come later in the year, may even beyond the sort of cold weather that's being raised as a concern. But we can certainly, I guess, address and discuss those if that looks like it's an issue.
Okay, great. We're going on 25 minutes on this topic, and we've got quite a bit left for the agenda. Let's take one more question, and then you guys have a...
I'm just gonna, if I can just do a couple slides there. Yeah, just...
So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and excuse ourselves. If you guys, if any of your residents... We are, but what I was going to say is we're happy to come back, as construction plans get more firm. I certainly can.
Yes. I just would like to, one slide up here is pre-construction surveys. We've sent out a couple letters to folks about trying to get pre-construction surveys. I would encourage you, if you haven't done it, please submit it. Stephen, do you have forms today that folks can sign today?
Yeah.
Okay. We're even efficient. You can sign up today. We're a full mill deal. So you're, Stephen, why don't you raise your hand here? And we appreciate the signing up for that.
How did the surveys, how do they distribute it?
You haven't seen one? Thomas?
Yeah. Just to respond quickly to that, Madam Chairman. The pre-construction surveys are a zone of influence around the tunnel. So if you received a letter from us, there were about 320 letters that went out, that were in a zone of influence. Those are the people. Not everybody's going to get a pre-construction survey. Okay, so why don't you, if you could say Stephen, we'll make sure that you have that.
We basically send letters out to everybody supposedly. But
I usually get your communications, but there have been some concern by some of my neighbors that they don't always get it.
Okay.
So I'll be happy to distribute those to my neighbors.
How many have you gotten back?
Yeah, we got 50 or so, Stephen? 52, yeah, as of today. And we've already started doing
This is important for us. If you guys can make sure you submit the pre-construction surveys, we appreciate it. Again, thank you very much. I'm sorry we took a little extra time there. We didn't plan on that.
Cover the small diameter main issue.
No, we won't want to cover that. We'll bring some copies because Commissioner Martin will bring something to the head from there.
Does anyone have any questions about the small diameter main? Okay, all right, so before, if you guys, these words don't mind holding tight, I have a police officer standing at the door, and I don't want him to be off his feet too long. Can you get the officer, please? Yes. So, thank you. So normally we have someone come out from 5B, and this time we invited the Captain Beach to come out. But he's had a really tough, busy day at the Navy Yard, so he is off the hook for tonight, and we expect to see him next month. But we are just as pleased to have the two of you. I don't want you to think we don't love you too. So what's the latest and greatest?
I don't have anything like news-wise. I'm off the ground and stuff here for latest and greatest is part of the city.
I think we're most concerned about what's going on in Bloomingdale. The trend, if there's nothing new, then I think we'll start with questions.
Kind of the same old is we still need robberies, still need occasional burglaries, robbery earlier this morning.
Thank you.
At the Flagler Market. And we had a robbery this morning at Flagler Market. And I don't recall any burglaries lately in a while.
Do you guys have any concerns? I mean, or stuff that you want us to report back, or?
We do. I think this gentleman back
I just had a question about Flagler Market, so I saw the crime scene tape up earlier today, and I know they've had a couple of robberies in this place, so I think there were actually less than another robbery there today.
Yes.
So, I've been hearing from some neighbors who have had some packages missing. What is your best advice regarding that? This is particularly in condo buildings, and in some instances the packages were left out on, we all understand the risk involved in that, but in other instances they were a bit more hidden, like under a stairwell. Is that something that they have to work directly with the post office or whatever postal carrier they're using, or is that something that you all might be able to help with as well, especially if it's in a concentrated area?
When it comes to packages, you can do both. You contact your local representative. The U.S. Postal Department has a postal inspector who comes out for stolen packages and that sort of thing. I personally worked with stolen packages in the past. What happened was the neighbor saw someone going up somebody else's door, taking their package and leaving, and me catching the person, and I arrested that person for theft of mail. I worked closely with the federal government, with the postal inspector in that particular case. But a lot of that has to do with neighbors watching out for neighbors coming up to someone's door and doesn't quite look right, and we can go check them out.
And track your packages, if you can, just so you get an idea of when you can expect them, know when they should be there, so
All right, do we have any more questions for them?
There's still the house surfing that's going on W Street. There's a young man who goes up to the doors and checks the doors to see if they're locked. If they're not locked, then they go in. He went to someone's house on W Street this past weekend about 5:30 in the morning. And it's not the same guy who was surfing on B Street. Different guy.
Also, on my block, when you block our street, we had a couple kids a couple days ago walking down the street, checking both sides of car doors as they were walking along. And then my downstairs neighbors also had their bank card and bank card PIN number mailings lifted out of the mail, and what seemed to be kind of targeted process. Is that a common occurrence?
Not as much, but I mean with the most recent was the lady that you arrested with the mail. I mean, she was, I think when they went in her house, they found a lot of mail that she's been.
And we did a search warrant on that house. We were down quite a bit more. As far as that kind of crime, the kids coming by, that's kind of
more of a crime of opportunity, you know what I mean? So try not to leave anything of value in your cars, iPods, GPS, because basically they look in the window and they see that, they're gonna, try and break the window and get in the car. So try and keep that stuff hidden or just take it out altogether or save you a little bit.
Even if it's cluttered, even my personal car, there's nothing. You can see it. It's just maybe a deterrent.
Okay, I see two hands, one behind Don right there, and then Sarita, and then this one right here.
Okay, also, people come and kids ring the doorbells, they're really targeting who's at home and who's not. That's happened a couple times working at home. And they say, oh, we're selling magazines, but nothing to support that. But what they're doing is, they're seeing who's there and who's not, to be able to have time and comfort to bring them.
Yeah, that's kind of another thing that's kind of common. They ask for Kevin Smith. Oh, sorry, wrong house. Where?
Okay.
Do we have any information on if the kids come from our neighborhood or they come from other neighborhoods, and is that controllable from other neighborhoods? Are you targeting that? See if kids are coming in from, checking out where they live and all that stuff, and catch them if they're from our neighborhood or if they're from another neighborhood?
It's most likely they're from a different neighborhood. Usually we do catch them. They're from,
like a neighboring somewhere that's right on the
block over, so
yeah.
Follow up on what the gentleman come up with, what neighborhood some of these perpetrators live. I know in the recent burglaries, house burglaries, and one of which was mine, the person arrested lived in Southeast, and a lot of the properties were still in the home. I don't know if to what extent the department had reached out to the Bloomingdale neighborhood and said, we may have your property, come down and take a look at what we have to see if your property has been covered. And also, a week and a half ago, my car, was broken into, and I had some items stolen from my car. I'm just concerned that I've lived in Bloomingdale for 30 years. I've been a part of this neighborhood all my life. But it seems to me that my concern is that there might be a spike of crime that's going on. And I don't know if the Department sees it as a temporary or seasonal spike, and do what may be planned or what is being undertaken to try to address that and advise the neighbors what to do with their homes, their windows, the sunroofs that they may have. And I know that on my block there's several empty houses, that make it easy for people to do things. And then with the construction going on, I think that it would be good to hear to a certain degree that either there is a spike, there isn't a spike. We're aware of what's happening. We're working. We're coming with a plan. We're putting more police officers on the street so that you see anything, contact this number. That would have been, that's something I think would be helpful to, whether there is a spike of crime in the neighborhood. And all these people from our neighborhood, or are they from Southeast PG County, somewhere else?
But it's had a continuous decline in crime. There's no spike. We have the lowest crime in all of 5D, and I guess we're tied. All of 5D is tied with 2D with the lowest percentage of declining crime. So we're actually really good when it comes to crime, especially in this particular area.
All right. Thank you very much. So just on the tail of on an associated topic, we're going to hear from somebody about Crime Stoppers real quick.
Well, good evening. Good evening. I've been a board member of Crime Solvers for the last 5 years, as Robert Brown, and he's been a colleague on that for the last few years as well. And so one of the things that I'm doing now more with Crime Solvers is just getting the word out. Crime Solvers, well, it doesn't take too much to figure out what we're about there. It's about solving crime. And what Crime Solvers does, we've been here in DC for over 30 years now, as a venue for people to get their information to MPD. And I can say in the last 7 years working here in the neighborhood, getting good information to MPD is absolutely critical to getting things done. And there are all kinds of ways to do it, but Crime Solvers is one. So I have flyers about Crime Solvers and what it does, and the phone numbers, and as well as some posters that we can have out in the community, let's say at some of the stores and whatnot. I mean, my hope is I'll be starting to make visits like this to all sorts of civic associations around Ward 5 and beyond, just to get this word out. So that's what it comes down to. Particularly violent crimes, Crime Solvers makes monetary rewards available up to $1,000 for tips leading to arrests on mainly, again, violent felonies, assaults, homicides, those kinds of things. And but any kind of information, frankly, these numbers here will get you a connection to MPD, which is all anonymous. Again, people are concerned about anonymity. Even if you're getting a reward, it's still all anonymous. So you're given a number. You know, you made this call in, you're given a number, nobody knows your name, it's not connected to anything like that. So again, anonymity is a part of the program. It's just getting information out, anything that's going on. It always makes a big difference in solving crimes. Again, I've seen it in this neighborhood time and again. People would give me information, I'd pass it on to MPD, and sure enough, that was enough to kind of get them to focus and get the job done. And as the officer said, we're doing better than ever here. So problems are still going on, though. That's, again, as Robert just explained, his own situation in his own house. So we need to have ways to get information to MPD. And again, Crime Solvers is one. If anybody wants a flyer, I'm happy to give it to you. And again, anybody who wishes to put something up in their place of business or in get one at a neighboring store or whatever, we'll try and get those around the community so that, again, we're getting this information out and that kind of thing. Poster, yes indeed. So, that's it. Robert, anything you want to throw out on that? Since again, we have the luxury of having two Crime Solvers board members here today.
Other than to figure support a lot of what John said, you know, I'm also, in addition to being a board member, I'm also a secretary to the Crime Solvers. The critical piece is to call and give information, and it can be done anonymously. If you're not concerned about the reward, that's fine, but the monetary rewards have been very significant, and it helps detectives in doing their work. And whatever information that you can provide is helpful. Recently, someone contacted me about being, it doesn't have to be in this neighborhood, it's something that happened that you see happening somewhere else, or someone give you some information. Someone called me and said that they heard a person contact somebody about buying military-style uniforms at a 7-Eleven on Rhode Island Avenue, and they were concerned. They called me. I relayed that information to the chief, and there was follow-up, we went back and talked to that person, to the 7-Eleven, and some significant follow-up action was taken when we had on that issue. The significant is somebody saying, told the person, I will buy many military-style uniforms. And having the person selling it was a homeless person just trying to make a few dollars. And told that person, if you get some more, we'll buy it. So that was significant police intelligence that was helpful to them in the intel purposes. So as they say, whatever you hear, we're not telling you to be snitching, but be proactive and observant as to what's happening in your neighborhood.
All right, great. 8-11. Thank you both for valuable information, and please help spread the word. So next, we are going to hear the last little bit from DC Water, and we're going to try to get through that as quickly as possible so that we can get on to our issues around North Capitol in Florida. So, Emmanuel, Chris, I think you had a question?
Just very quick. When was that supposed to start? I think there was something about expecting like a cessation of service for a little bit of time last week.
Oh, that's a different project.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And also, like, when you do get your street repaired, which mine's going to be repaired in a lot of those, what do you do with regard to, like, do you have to flush the system daily? Or is it,
What's the question?
The system, when you guys replace the water main, do you have to flush it out daily at what time? In the evening after you guys work?
So this is for the water main?
For the water main, yeah, sorry.
Is that on the small diameter water main project? So we have copies here, if you want a copy. Our project team for that project is here tonight, but I'm fairly familiar with how these projects run. This is pretty much just a small diameter water main replacement project. We're going to be working on 2nd Street from Florida to Thomas Street. The work is going to start somewhere about September 20th. Is the tentative date that we're looking at. With that, there's a map on the back of this sheet that shows you where we'll be working. What we're trying to do in terms of coordination with the First Street Tunnel project is to be done with this portion of the work that's north of Rhode Island Avenue by or before November 15th, so that we can coordinate well with that. These projects are, they're pretty straightforward. There's many that are much longer than this one. This is the shorter one. This is actually a location that was scheduled for a later contract, another contract altogether. But because we wanted to coordinate this with the First Street Tunnel and not come back months or a year or years down the line and disrupt you folks again with this smaller project, we wanted to expedite it and get it out of the way now so we can coordinate the tests. We'll be disrupting anyway with the First Street Tunnel. So that's the reason why we're expediting the work now. Of course, that's a process of excavation. On the project sheet, it shows you so many linear feet of water mains that we're replacing. There is a process of flushing that has to take place once the work is done. When all the construction is done, so once all the water mains have been replaced and all of the new water mains have been tied into the existing water distribution system, and all the service lines have been forwarded from the old water mains to the new water mains, that's what we call construction has been completed. And there is a process that our drinking water division then comes in and they do a system of flushing. There's a system of filters they'll hand to you. They want you to filter for those who are in the impact area. There's a system of filtering that takes place for up to about 6 months. And so forth. Many you may be contacted about this project. There may be an opportunity here to replace your private service lines simultaneously while DC Water is replacing the water main in the public portion of the service line that goes to your property. If you did receive a letter with that information, definitely want to get in contact with us to see if you want to replace that service line. As far as any other pertinent information, again, this is scheduled to start by September 20th.
we're going to try to finish as much of the project as we can by November 15th, but we'll at least be done with this portion of Rhode Island Avenue. So we'll be out of this way before the first tunnel comes in.
I'm just wondering, because like if you have to flush it out, like having like a hot water heater, like, especially the on-demand ones, if it gets like, you know, clogged, it's kind of like done. So I just wanted to know, like, do you think you have to flush it periodically throughout that 6-month period, or? Like,
It's like a periodic thing throughout the 6-month period. There's information that'll go out to you once the project is done. It'll give you detailed information on how often to flush your taps and things you do with your water heater. But that'll be another packet that'll come to you as soon as the project is done. It'll give you all the details that you need and all the filters that you need following that construction.
So I just wanted to add that I didn't hear you say this, but this also impacts the 100 blocks of S and Seton.
Yes.
And while your team is not here tonight, they did come to my single member district meeting last week. And when I talked to them then, they were contemplating, when they did the work on 2nd Street on the south side, south of Rhode Island, between Rhode Island and Florida, they were contemplating that there would be no parking from Rhode Island all the way to Florida on 2nd Street. And so I think we've managed somewhat of a compromise, but I'll be looking for a confirmation from you that we're instead of doing that entire thing, we would maybe do a block at a time.
Kind of phasing it.
Kind of phasing it in. So because we have a lot of seniors over there, and that might entail them walking pretty far.
Right, that's exactly right, Judge. So yeah, then we will be doing a system of exactly that, just the phasing, because we do know to impact this whole stretch of takeaway parking is, you know, would be an advisable situation. So we will be working to do a phasing. We'll keep you certainly in the loop on the phases of the construction as well as the restoration. So when the restoration is done, I can tell you about that. When that's done, we'll try to expedite this too as quickly as possible. There's a 2-phase restoration. There's a concrete phase, of course, you know, and then there's an asphalt restoration. So when that comes up, even then, there's to be some information I'll go out to you in an email. What I've done is over the past, I don't know, since last summer when the floods, when those happen, we compiled a listserv. It's a massive listserv today of, you know, hundreds of names in there. If you want your name added to if you've not got information from us to date and you'd like to be added to the listserv, I'll be around here once I finish talking. You can give me your name, I can add it to the listserv, because that'll be the listserv that I send information to on any updates about this project too as it moves forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And that project is going to go from north to south. So we'll be starting on the north part of Bloomingdale, working back towards the south. All right. So next we're moving on to the project at North Capitol and Florida Avenue. We're going to hear from Mr. Freeman. I think he's just getting.
Why don't you put it on that blue table? It's higher. And I think more people can see it.
No, I'm going to have it
All right, I'm going to get started. Good evening. My name is Tyrus Freeman. I'm an attorney with the law firm calling tonight. Currently on behalf of the applicant, seeking modifications of an approved PUD at 1600 North Avenue Street. What I'm going to do is take a quick minute or so to kind of give a little bit of background and then spend the rest of my time talking about what we're here for today. As a number of the members here would likely know, Joe Mamo, who's the owner of the site, essentially at North Capitol in Florida in trucks and circles, a vacant piece of dirt at that corner. Back in 2006, we got an approved PUD. That is a picture or a rendering of the approved PUD. That building's about 4.5 FAR, 86 feet in height, 65 to 85 units. I would just say a little less than 5,000 square feet of retail, and 2 levels of parking, 84 parking spaces. So again, that project was approved back in 2006, so a long time ago. Since then, I should also add that the construction type on that building was all concrete. Since then, we've been back before the ANC a couple of times, I'd say, asking for extensions. And in order to get an extension, you had to demonstrate a couple of things. Let's just say we met the standards for those extensions. What we're now asking for is a modification, or modifications to our approved PUD. Essentially, we're trying to change about 5 things. And the whole purpose of these modifications, let me just say, all of this is in a public record at the Office of Zoning. All of this has been shared with the ANC, so I'm just kind of giving a quick overview in our time here. But essentially, recently, the owners engaged a new broker, Cassie Torley. Cassie Torley develops and markets a lot of projects across the city of all product types. What they've been hearing from folks that were interested in like developing a project were 2 main things. One, it was very expensive to build, all concrete, and there's a lot of extra space in the building in terms of larger units, and we were, in their view, overparked. So what we have followed is a modification. A modification to our approved PUD. The modification does about 4 things with respect to the building. This is a new building. If you're looking at the board, you probably can't see a dramatic change, other than it's more brighter and maybe more modern looking. So here are the 5 things we've done. 1, we reduced what you can't really notice, we've changed the construction type. Before it's all concrete, now it's kind of like a concrete podium with stick. That makes it easier and more realistic to build.
Concrete podium with what?
Concrete podium with stick, which is kind of how most brick. Stick. I'm sorry. Stick. Wood.
Yeah.
So with stick construction, you can only go to a certain height. So the first modification is changing the height from 86 to 73 feet. So it's a reduction in height. Secondly, the unit range is different. The original unit range was 65 to 85. Now our unit range is 85 to 95. So it's a net increase at the top end of 10 units. And that was achieved by changing the size of the units a little. The original building had large, kind of like penthouse units on the upper floor, but now we've kind of modernized the size of our units. The average unit size before was about 872 square feet, and the current average range is from 767 to 757. So they're not tiny, but they're a little smaller and more consistent with the current market for residential units. What you will likely be most interested in, we went from 2 levels of parking to 1 level of parking. The original project had 84 parking spaces. We now have 41 parking spaces. 35 parking spaces are required, so we're still above our zoning requirement. We also have a total of 68 bike spaces. It's hard for me to make the before and after because we didn't designate the total number of parking spaces back in 2006. But we now have 60 bike parking spaces within our building and 8 parking spaces within public space. The 4th and 5th thing, number 4, is you can't really see it on this plan, but we have retail along Florida Avenue. We have about 4,900 square feet of retail, a little less than 5,000. What we've asked for flexibility is to convert that retail space to residential space if we are not able to find a retail tenant at the time we're actually ready to move forward with our building, which would be about 2 years from now. So we've committed to work with our agency commissioner to try to figure out how to tighten up language to make sure that it's clear that we're taking realistic efforts to market and lease that space to a retail tenant, and not just kind of unilaterally deciding to do residential instead of retail space. And last, the project has included about $109,000 towards various amenities towards a number of different organizations, some of which no longer exist. We had 2 schools, we had the North Capital Incubation Fund, and there were also funds to install the fence at the Florida Avenue Park. So what we propose to do now is to shift those funds just for the things that no longer exist, shift those funds to the North Capital Main Street Inc. And North Capital Main Street Inc. would use that money for storefront improvements and technical assistance for businesses within the boundaries of the bid. So we're asking for your support for our proposed modifications, which are detailed and more extent in the handout, and happy to answer any questions.
Before we get into questions, let me just mention a couple things. Well, first, can I just get a survey of how many people live on either R, Quincy, North Capitol Street, like unit blocks, 1, 2. Okay, all right. That's helpful for me to understand who's actually here from the single member district. Second, I wanted to add to the discussion before we hear from the audience what came out of the single member district meeting last week on this project. The sentiment of those who were present was that they wanted to have, did you already mention the parking permit?
No.
Okay. So what they wanted, they shared the concern that I had already mentioned to Mr. Freeman about the reduction of parking. And what we came up with was a suggestion that the property come with a restriction on RPP. So if you live in that building, you would not be able to get the registration designation that would allow you to park in an RPP space on Quincy or anywhere within Ward 5. So there was, it seemed like that was, we're working, yeah. So I know he was going to take that back to the owner, so it looks like we're fine with that. The other concern was whether this was actually going to be condos or apartments. And I understand that there's not a requirement for that determination to be made before the CFO is issued. Is that right?
Well, really, there is no requirement in the loan regulations, but we would determine by the time they start.
So we wanted to send back our strong preference for condos as opposed to apartments. That's what came out of the meeting. And there were also some concerns about the lingering environmental issues, which I think you're going to speak to if you haven't already.
Right.
And some of those issues, most of those issues were dealt with during the meeting in terms of the environmental issues. But I think it's important to address those again here tonight so that we're all on the same page.
So for folks that have been here for a while, you know this was a gas station at some point, right? So part of, and going through the extensions, part of the standard was in Exxon, so Exxon had to clean it up. And that required removing tanks, it required doing a bunch of soil borings and testing. So that process took some time. And we recently, this is 2011, 2012, I don't have the exact letter in front of me. We completed all of that work and got what's called a no further action letter, and that's issued by the DC Department of the Environment. And that letter essentially says you've done all of the steps that are necessary to kind of close out your case with the Department of the Environment, and therefore can move forward with development of the site. And that's a standard letter that DDOE issues kind of across the city for sites that have been had prior uses that might have resulted in some leakage into the water or soil. So on the RPP again, in response to the comments that we heard from the commissioner and from folks at the community, we agreed to do the RPP restriction, which as she said, means if you live in that building, you cannot get a decal to park on the street. So if folks are concerned about residents of this building parking on the streets, they would not be able to do that. and that would be illegal.
I see a question in the back. Q?
Yes, sir. Does your agency commissioner who's helping you negotiate this deal hold a seat on the board of directors, the organization to which you're planning to reallocate the funding?
No. Well, hold on, just so I can understand your question. We have not, let me go back. North Capital Bid Inc., which was a recipient under the PUD, was essentially a predecessor in interest to the North Capital Main Street Inc.
Completely separate organizations.
But that organization never existed.
But there still remains an issue. Let me be clear. I'm going to address this because I also addressed it at the single member district meeting. There are two reasons why when we get to the discussion as to the amenities package, the ANC, I will not be able to participate in that part of the vote. So we're going to have a bifurcated vote. We're going to have one vote that deals with whether we should move forward with the project at all, and then we'll have a separate vote that deals with how the funds should be allocated, those funds that would have gone to organizations that are no longer existing. Because I'm on the board here in the BCA, and the BCA would be one of the recipients of funds under the amenities package. But I am also, as of maybe a month and a half ago, on the board of North Capitol Main Street. And if North Capitol Main Street were to get any money, that would also be inappropriate for me to take a vote on that issue. So I won't be voting on that part, and we'll have this conversation, same conversation I'm having right now that I had last week with the single member district, I'll have again when we get to the ANC meeting.
I think his question was a little different, but I'll skip it.
Let me just
The
add.
question was about negotiation, not about voting.
No,
but I have another issue, okay?
Can I answer his question? I haven't completed answer his question. Our order, which was approved in 2006, well before Terry Commissioner Quinn was around, says $35,000 for the North Capitol Street Bid Incubation Fund for the creation of a business improvement district along the North Capitol Street corridor. So that was 2006, and we're proposing to still put money to the North Capitol Main Street, which is now that bid. That bid did not exist in 2006. It was an incubation fund. So it's not because
you don't see anything wrong here.
No, it's legal because that's what was decided in 2006, not new.
So you're saying because it was done in 2006, Commissioner Quinn was not a commissioner?
She was not a commissioner. She has recused herself from the vote. She's not going to vote on that issue. And the intent in 2006 was to go to this organization that was going to do business improvement on North Capitol.
Well, that was what some of the money was to go to.
That was actually 35% of it.
Yeah, 35%. Now, what about the other?
The other was for two schools. One was for, no, it's not. It's a total of $46,000. So $35,000 was to the bid. The remaining $1,000 was to go to a school, which is closed. $6,600 was to go to a school, which is closed. $1,000 was to go for the installation of a fence at the Florida Avenue Park, and that work has been done. So instead of so all of the other money is still going to all of the other places that were agreed upon and negotiated back in 2006. I can go through it. There's a school, Dunbar, McKinley Tech, Door, DC Prep. I just talked about the contractor for community improvements, the Bloomingdale Civic Association and Eckington Civic Association, Stronghold Civic Association, Bay Street Civic Association, and a 5th District Advisory Committee. So those folks are still getting the funding that was approved towards those organizations back in 2006. None of that's changing because they still exist.
Okay, sorry.
Personally, I don't see a conflict of interest with our president voting as president of BCA and being a commissioner, because it's clear it's above board, and she's reflecting the will. If this body votes to support this, she is simply voting as the body has directed her to do on behalf of us. So I think that's clear. There's no conflict of interest. Simply now that her actions will be a lot more honorable than what some previous individuals have done when they were sitting there. So let's move past that. She's above board. There is no question about her integrity. So I don't think if she wants to recuse herself, that's her individual decision. She has no mandate to do it. There is no clear conflict of interest. The other point I want to make is that, if we're holding a standard to our president, then why is it that we don't hold that same standard to the other civic associations who have commissioners who are members of those organizations who will be voting in Eckington, Edgewood, and Stronghold, because this would at some point may have to go before the council. I don't know. And as far as reciprocity, I think blocking someone from getting a RPP, I think needs approval from the council, not by and not a purview of the ANC. The council has to specifically enact legislation that says those residents cannot get that RPP. I think I'm just saying it so folks will understand that who has the authority to limit that, because by right, if you live in Ward 5, you can get it.
That's a good point. On the last point, the council in fact did adopt legislation a year or two ago that said a developer can exclude their building from RPP. So once we make this commitment, if it's approved, what we do is we go to the DMV, we say, here is a zoning commission order excluding our building from RPP. We type in our building address so that if you, madam, live in 1600 North Capitol Street, go to the DMV and try to get an RPP sticker, the DMV will not give you a sticker.
Well, what do you got to do with people? I mean, if you only have 40, how many spaces?
41.
41 spaces, and let's suppose you have more than 41 cars.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are you punishing the people who can't get a space?
So what we found in two situations, I'll approach it from a practical sense and from a city. From a practical sense and from a city perspective. Practically, if you know there are only 41 parking spaces in this building, and if you want a space and you can't get a spot on the street, which you'd be excluded from, you wouldn't live there. You live at 50 Florida Avenue, which has plenty of parking, or you live someplace else. Second, if I can answer the question. Secondly, from a policy perspective, the city takes the premise, which I think is sound from a planning perspective. If you build parking spaces, people will drive. People will come and people will drive.
I know the city takes that perspective, but the data doesn't support it. Now, my main concern, however, is the loss of the second level parking.
Yes.
And I think that is tragic. Okay. I think it is tragic because, first of all, we have a parking problem. Second of all, there is a lot of development going on, at that end of North Capitol, moving on to Florida. North Capitol may